telling you. I just hit record. I'm not telling you.
This is fresh. Yeah, we are fresh out the gate. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Trying to Be Better podcast with Joel and Steve. My name is Joel.
And I'm Steve.
I'm going to regret how I said my name there.
No, you'll be fine.
Okay.
You're not going to regret. Jack was so funny talking about your spin out on Waffle House.
Oh, my God. I'm going to read it. It was perfect. He said, our friend Jack said, when I start to feel like I'm not doing life right, I'll just remember Joel's inability to order from Waffle House and the emotional spin it threw him into. And I thought my thought about that was, yeah, that is me. Right. Like the littlest stuff,
right?
Totally off the fucking map. You know what I mean? Yeah, the littlest stuff will totally send me.
Too many jalapenos in your hash browns.
That's it. Screw it. I'm out.
I'm done.
I can't figure out how to Waffle House.
So how are you doing with the big stuff?
Well, I think the big stuff's okay right now, actually.
I think we should note that we haven't really talked for a week since we did this last time. So this is like, so maybe we should just talk about our week, how we're feeling.
So how was your week?
Go fuck yourself.
Welcome to the podcast where we talk about our weeks. Yeah, the big stuff. I mean, there is big stuff though, man. Like school's back. I'm back doing that, and it's already shifted, a little bit.
Back to masks. Wait, does that apply to you since you're not in Lancaster County?
It does. So, so the mandate, the policy at my particular school, it came down right before Lincoln did their mask policy. So, yeah, but it was just like they could read the writing on the wall. Sure. I mean, it was like, So
this is coming.
It was, it was a shift, but it was, it was fine. But it's like, I was telling somebody I've made an intentional, and I've made an intention, I should say, I've made an intention this summer to really savor my privileged, summer off, essentially.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, holy crap, shot right out of a cannon, back at it, know. That's been an adjustment, but
it's like a fire hose of work.
Yeah, like instantly a fire hose. Like my email is ticking, stuff to do. I was on campus, till like 9:30 or 10, 3 out of the 5 nights last week. And it's just go. So
I can appreciate that. Back
to it.
Yeah, right.
Well, how's the big stuff for you? Big stuff?
Sorry, I just got a little fluttered there for a second.
Yeah.
Fundamentally okay, I think. I put in an 11-hour day today.
Woof.
On top, it's like 10-hour days are kind of the norm right now through probably the next couple months.
Yeah.
So, but that's why they pay me the big bucks.
That's right.
And help's on the way. I got a new person starting on Monday, so like that's really great. And everything is for the most part going okay. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's weird being a parent in the middle of a global pandemic, and that's just been stressful and hard. And my sister actually sent me this article. Parents are not okay, from The Atlantic. And the last paragraph of it is, parents aren't even at a breaking point anymore. We're broken. And yet we'll go on because that's what we do. We sweep up all our pieces and put them back together as best we can. We carry on chipped and leaking and broken because we have no other choice. And we pray that if we just keep going, our kids will survive too.
Yeah. Wow.
So, it's, so I'm, for one, glad that Lancaster County re-implemented the mask mandate. That did cause already some people to just leave my kids' school.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Well, sure.
Bye.
Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really just weird and whatever. So there's that, but I don't know, man. Like, to be perfectly frank, I feel a little grounded down,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Just in general, it's just a lot with going back to school and works a lot. And, it's just been hot, and
It really
it's
has.
just been hot. And like this weekend though, man, I had a peak dad slash American homeowner moment this weekend where
Mm.
my house is, well, it's 60 years old now and just needs a lot of work, little
Yeah.
stuff, and some big
Yeah.
stuff. But like our garage doors, we have two like single car garages. You've seen my house.
Yep.
And the garage doors they're 25 years of benign neglect that has turned into like they just didn't work very well, and then my wife's just stopped working.
Oh.
So I'm like, okay, fine. So I got all the stuff to fix them, and it was beautiful on Saturday. And I
Yeah.
got my little Bluetooth speaker out and I put on a show, and I just started fixing garage doors, man. And I kind of gave myself a crash course in that, and I felt like my testosterone levels went up like 25%. I mean, I felt really like,
Yeah.
pick your Tim Allen, whatever.
Yeah.
Like it was great, man. I actually, well, okay, so it took 2 trips to Home Depot and 1 trip to the hardware store.
Yeah. 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 So that's inevitable.
If you count in, another hour and a half of drive time or whatever. But really, it was a nice little Saturday.
Dude, I had a similar experience like a couple weeks ago because I needed to fully replace all of the well, I don't know if I need to. It was just like that seemed like the thing I would try, fully replace all the mechanisms in my downstairs toilet.
Toilet. Yeah.
And that's not complicated for most of you, perhaps that are listening to this, but it does. Like,
well, you got to take the tank off, and it's a thing, and
it's a whole thing. Mm-hmm. It's a whole thing, and I was like,
do you own a wet and dry vac?
Or I do not.
So how'd you deal with that?
I was very careful about water.
Oh, well, there you have it.
You know what I mean?
What you do is you go to the hardware store and you spend $40 on a 1-gallon wet and dry vac.
I know. Yeah, I should do that.
It's a really awesome investment. It's the kind of thing you don't need much, but they're very handy.
Yeah. Yeah. Good call. Maybe I'll do that.
Mm-hmm. And I say 1 gallon because mine is like a 10-gallon, and it's a giant pain in the ass.
Yeah, it's too much.
It's way too big to lug up, and it's just a hassle. So get a small one.
Okay.
You don't work in a factory. You have a house.
Yeah.
And a gallon's probably enough. Now that we've lost all of our listeners.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the Fix It podcast with Joel and Steve, where we congratulate ourselves on very menial household tasks.
I definitely had a moment though where both the garage doors were like working, because they used to they creak and squeak, and they were kind of lopsided. And they're both going up and down evenly and quietly. And I was just standing in my driveway like, fuck yeah.
Well, this is
those garage doors.
Yeah. This is awesome because our garage is only one stall, but it's like it's pretty herky jerky when you close it, and I'm like, I feel like that's going to happen. I might need your expertise.
I know how to do that now. So happy.
Congratulations.
To help out.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about it. I've lived in this house for 16 years, and I finally fixed the garage doors.
That's great. Well done.
Oh God.
So hey, everybody out there, like and subscribe to the podcast. Sure. Give us a good rating or a bad rating. I don't really care. Just rate us.
Give us some attention.
Follow us on the Instagram. I'm going to push that. Trying to be better podcast Instagram. And email the show. Steve, take it away.
TTBB podcast at gmail.com.
TTBB.
We would love to hear from you.
That. So please email us. You said you had a couple of things.
Oh yeah, I knew we were doing this tonight, and I'm thinking about what are we talking about? Like what's rolling through old Steve-O's noodle,
what's rolling around an old duder's head,
right? And there's a couple things. One, and this is all the same thing, which is it's righteous indignation.
Oh,
self-righteous.
We're still there.
It's self-righteous indignation completely. But it's I saw a deal, a meme, if you will, from somebody that has, how do I want to put this, been posting gleefully things, just ripping on libtards and
sweet.
Yeah. Just the right. lowest bar,
right.
Fuck the libtards kind of stuff.
Right.
But it's but it's funny, haha.
Yeah.
And so then I see, and this kills me. There's a thing going around, and I think it's, the meme itself is well intentioned, but it's a picture of Morgan Freeman. Who doesn't love Morgan Freeman?
Yeah, what's not to love?
Saying, I think we need to keep in mind that just because we may disagree doesn't mean that I hate you, and we need more of that. We need to keep that in mind more.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, I get that.
Yeah.
But coming from like this 5-6 year stretch of this horror show,
yeah,
to me it doesn't sit quite right. And I had to figure out, like, why does that bother me? Why don't I think, well, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And the very short version, like the if I distill it down,
yeah,
it's that it's not that we have a difference of opinion. That's not the issue.
Yeah.
The issue is that we have a difference in morality.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't hate you, but I also don't want to have anything to do with you.
That is,
and so to kind of, like, it's not to come back. I know I've been spouting this horrible, idiotic crap that's just hateful and hurtful and supporting just people whose primary policy is just to be cruel.
Yeah.
But I don't hate you. My response to that is, fuck you.
Yeah. Kirsten and I have talked about this, and I this is a really good point.
It's like, but you don't, but if you judge me for saying and believing all these horrible things, then really you're a bad person.
So there's a difference between having an opinion. Like, I really like, today's podcast is brought to you by bubbly coconut pineapple fizzy water.
You're all fancy. I'm just lime.
I like this. I think that this is refreshing. My opinion is that this is a wonderful beverage to enjoy on a hot day like today in August in Nebraska. That's my opinion.
Yes, that is your opinion.
And then, I know people that detest seltzer water. I think it tastes like, burnt.
And if you, one of my daughters said it tastes like a rainy day.
Yeah. So one of your daughters says it tastes like a rainy day. I think it tastes like heaven in a can. That's a difference of opinion, right?
Sure. Yeah.
When you say things, when somebody has the opinion of like, I don't know, like somebody wearing a mask out of indignation that says this is dumb on it, and it's like, this is all stupid, and we're all, or like, I Googled something and masks make people sicker and prevent you from getting oxygen. And we should really be taking medicine intended for horses to treat COVID, whatever.
Yeah.
Like there's or even further back than that, we should build a wall to keep XYZ people out, or,
and we should do that with ill-gotten funds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's not, it's like,
or we should put 2-year-olds in cages,
right,
and make them go to court by themselves,
right?
Or we should, we should implement travel bans designed to do nothing more than rip families apart and create chaos.
We should sign up for a despot dictator ding dong, only because wannabe ding dong. Yeah. He really, yeah.
Well, no,
only because to stack the Supreme Court so that we can regulate female bodies and what they should or shouldn't do with them. Blah blah blah. That is okay. So that's like there's opinion, and then there's outright, difference of morality.
Yeah.
So we can't be like, oh well, let's just agree to disagree about civil rights or about police brutality against black bodies or what women should do with their own body.
Or, white domestic terrorism.
Exactly. Like,
where the young man shows up to a protest with an AR, and the cops buy him a cheeseburger.
Right.
Yeah, that's really not something that I'm gonna just, politely disagree with you about.
Yeah, that's
in
not
public. I will be polite, but I will never intentionally talk to you or want to have anything to do with you as a person.
Right. So it's like the difference, the like, well, can we all just come to the middle on this one? It's like, no,
just because I don't, we have a, doesn't mean that I don't love you. Well, that's doesn't ring very true.
No, especially
that bell is cracked.
Yeah, that bell's cracked. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of things that you're supporting that is solely based on, hate.
Right.
So you can't speak and propagate hate out of one side of your mouth, but then profess to love.
So,
now
this segues into the other thing that I was going to talk about.
Let's hit me.
Which is the notion there was somebody that I don't know real well in a public setting that has listened to this, that was sort of passively aggressively talking about, well, if you're judging other people, then you're not talking about love. And that if a lot of the things that sometimes people are talking about now are things that have gone on forever, we just know more about them now. And so, as using that as like it's always gone on. We just know more about it now. So why don't you just go play golf?
I see.
And it's like, well, I think that, obviously what we've talked about this before, like, what am I going to do about systemic societal problems?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What I can wear a sandwich board down by the federal building. I can, we know how effective that is. I can participate in protests.
Yep.
I can vote, which I still think you should do. Yep. And beyond that, silence is violence.
Yeah.
So I can talk, and don't mess with somebody that buys ink, that has dozens of listeners.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right. Yeah.
Like, this is what I can do, is I can talk to my friends about things that matter to me.
Yeah.
And things like social injustice and systemic racism and economic injustice and economic violence. All those things are important to me, and they're things that matter. So I'm going to talk about them. And you're right. There's a lot more information now than there used to be. And that's how we were able to live in the fucking dark ages for so long. They called the Gilded Age for a reason.
I was struck by something that happened just last night. So and I think it pertains to your point of like technology available, tools available, ways to express oneself, and how that affects communities, and how good that is to voice that. It's not maybe a good idea to bring a bunch of guns down to the Capitol and, try to, enact an insurrection. That's not what I'm talking about. But case in point, I was struck by, Jazari Qual, who has been on this program before.
Yes.
He is very, very skillful at sort of guerrilla journalism, right? Like, he is out there on the streets. He streams really well. He has good equipment. He makes it happen.
Yep.
So Kirsten was just, we were just watching a show.
You're talking about the UNL situation.
The UNL situation. So allegedly there was a female student that was raped at, I believe, the Fiji house. I don't really know what the actual letters are, but it's a fraternity house right there on Fraternity Row across the street from the student union. So Kirsten's scrolling through Facebook, and Jazari's live. So she's like, what's going on with Jazari? Because he keeps his finger on the pulse of everything that's happening in Lincoln. We love him.
Yeah, correct. Mm-hmm.
And there are literally maybe 1,500, 2,000 students down there.
Yeah, because I saw it start happening kind of early, and I'm like, holy shit. And I was watching people just, it's Phi Gamma Delta is what it is.
Phi Gamma Delta.
R, yeah.
And I was sitting there kind of in awe at the sheer number of people that are there, because I leaned over to Kirsten, and like one of the amazing young Black female leaders from Black Leaders Movement in Lincoln, who was a part of the protests in 2020 and was really adept at organizing that. She or they got their megaphone out and was leading this crowd, and it was really, really thoughtful. She led the crowd in 5 minutes of silence, and she brought all these women to the front. I mean, she's just a leader. But I leaned over to Kirsten. I'm like, when I was a student in UNL, we would hear about sexual violence, we would hear about assault, but there was no way to gather. I mean, there would be booths, there would be conversations, there would be meetings, there would be forums and meetings about that, but nothing that immediate and that electric.
Well, we learned that from, like, for example, the Arab Spring.
Yeah, right.
Where Twitter was actually, useful.
Yeah, for once.
Right.
But it's like, yeah, like you said, Steve, if you've got a voice, yeah, why it's not a matter of like, I don't know. I don't know if this is to your point or not. You can correct me, but if it's like, it's not a matter of, well, don't judge lest ye be judged. I mean, it's like, no, I'm welcome to be judged. If we can't allow for that, I'm not going to just like, don't judge lest ye be judged is not shut your mouth. That's not what that means.
Email at ttbbpodcast@gmail.com. Love to hear from you. Hell, we'll have you on.
Please. But yeah, it's like, don't judge lest ye be judged is, I think, what it's not saying is keep your mouth shut. Otherwise, you know what I mean? Like, you're not allowed to have the opinion. It's like, I don't know. It's a different energy, maybe. I don't know. Is that what you were talking about? Is that what you were trying?
I mean, it was. I was just kind of listening to this person who wasn't confronting me directly.
Yeah,
but it was kind of a left-handed, passive-aggressive situation.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay.
Yeah.
Whatever,
right.
man.
Right.
I'm 50 years old. I've been through more shit than most people can imagine. It's like, what do you, I'm going to talk, and you can listen or not.
Yeah. That's an interesting point. It's like,
because it was this person's point was, well, your podcast, you talk, you say things that you disagree with a lot, and the people, you kind of, you can't say that because I do call people idiots, so there's that. And then that is being judgmental. And so why don't you just go out and be positive and just go do you? And I'm like, well, I do that.
That's what this is.
Exactly. That's exactly what this is. And so it's like, what I think it would have been more honest, and I'm very much projecting here, for this person to say the things you say attack my construct, and it makes me uncomfortable.
Right.
And so I'm going to lash out at you.
Instead of saying, well, that you having those thoughts, expressing those ideas on your podcast that is yours to create and curate however you want. I would rather you change your tone so that it's more palatable for me versus, oh, that's not for me.
Right.
That's not for me.
Yeah, I'm going to keep cooking my food the way I cook my food, and you don't have to eat it.
I'm going to keep drinking my sad rainwater.
That's right,
kid.
That's right.
Yeah. It's delicious, and it makes me feel refreshed. All right?
Sad rainwater.
Well, I mean,
there's a marketing bonanza.
And frankly, like, this has been one of those experiences with having this regular, consistent, ongoing conversation with somebody who we agree on most things, but we see things a lot of the same way, but we come from different perspectives.
Yeah,
it is like this. It's a creative way to express oneself, and I don't ever assume, and I don't think we ever really started this for it to be palatable or comfortable for everybody. I don't think we're turning into like sensational, political pundits. We're just a couple of knuckleheads with a podcast.
And that's the other thing, is that if I was a betting man, which I'm occasionally am, I would gather that this person spends a lot of time listening to right-wing talk radio, which, well, I'll grant them the same grace that they would grant me.
There you go. Right. There you go.
Because I'm just a, fucking libtard. So how about pack sand? How about
that? Toot your hooter.
Toot your
hooter.
100%.
Yeah.
So that's really what I was rolling over, as those two. That was the Morgan Freeman thing, and then this guy. I'm like, whatever, man.
Yeah.
it's like the Morgan Freeman thing. Just kind of, it's like I'm just gonna put this little cherry on top of this. I'm gonna put this little kind of peace flag on top of this mountain of bullshit.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Whatever, man.
Well, that was really interesting to see, sort of in you know, I don't want to go too down the rabbit hole with this, but the difference between and it speaks to a larger conversation about like the 2016 election and the 2020 election. There was obvious outcry on both in both directions, but I had some folks who I know who were big supporters of our former president Donald Trump, who were like, "All right, well, you know, I know that we got to come together now. We got to get along now." It's like, what?
Yeah.
Like, no, you said for 4 years, you know,
fuck your feelings.
Fuck your feelings.
Yeah.
You know, don't tread on me.
Right.
You know, and so it's like it is this little like it's like on the playground when you're like, you know, time out.
Right. Yeah.
It's
things
like,
are turning again the way I don't like. So I'm gonna take my ball and go home and call time out and pout and
but I
think that happens. That happens on both sides.
Yeah. But I just think that it's also kind of an interesting larger look as I step back a little bit to see that there is, I mean, we do become very, and this is maybe me trying to be a little more compassionate with this whole like conflict, but it's like,
there you go again.
I know,
compassion,
but it's like we've become so conditioned to identify with our side, with our opinions, with our, but here's the thing, like there's one thing to disagree about policy. You know, that was the thing after the last president was in office. I think we were all kind of pining for boring discussions about policy.
Yep.
Instead of inflammatory fights about identity. Those two things are very different. But when you start, you know, putting your heel on the boot of people's existence or right to exist, quite literally,
your boot heel on people's necks,
literally on their necks,
yeah.
Then that's not something you have two different opinions about.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
you're either okay with that or you're not.
You're either okay with fascist murder of people, black and brown bodies, or you're either okay with it or you're not okay with it. There's no like, I've got an opinion about that. And it's like, no, there's what are we doing here? Then the fabric of our culture starts to really kind of degrade.
What do you mean starts to?
Yeah, well put.
Yeah. And really that's been happening for a long time. It's just accelerated.
Yeah, it is.
Noam Chomsky has talked about that for years and years and years. I remember reading a book of his, or maybe it was a talk, where he talked about, see, in authoritarian countries, you have an authoritarian ruler, pick your flavor. If there's a percentage of the population that's causing you a problem, you just imprison them and kill them. It's real simple.
Yeah, it sounds pretty familiar.
It's very straightforward. You know, you just have their neighbors rat them out. You put them in the gulag. You send them off to Siberia. You put them against the wall. You put them in the chamber, whatever.
You put them in the privatized prisons.
But here's the thing. So you can't do that in a democracy where there's things like you can't just en masse round people up.
Yeah.
At least 20, 25 years ago, you couldn't.
Right.
So you can't use the gun. So what tool do you have at your disposal? And that tool is mass media.
Yeah.
And then, so you take that, right, where you have even that, you know, when you had three networks that all basically said the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like, and if you disagree with me, how many major American auto manufacturers are there? There's Ford, there's Chrysler, there's General Motors.
Right.
If you sat a Ford F-150, a Dodge Ram, and a Chevy, what the fuck's the Chevy pickup?
Silverado.
Yeah. You set those things all side by side. What do they have? They have a large V8 motor
Yep.
They have a what 1,500 to 3,500 carrying capacity.
Mm-hmm.
They have maybe a dually option.
Sure.
And today
Extended
they have
cab
or extended cab, sure.
Mm-hmm.
But they're all pickup trucks.
Yeah.
Like one of them might have a better leather option. One of them might have a better fuel injection system. One of them might have slightly more horsepower, but they're all the fucking same thing. They
Yeah.
all do the same thing. It's like arguing over iPhone versus Android. They all get on Facebook.
Right.
Now that's a little bit more nuanced, but you get the point.
Yes.
And the reason why we have things like political advertisements is because you need to differentiate between them. Just like you need to differentiate between Ford and Chevy.
Yeah.
That's why when I see Calvin on the back of a Ford pickup pissing on Chevy, I'm just like, dude. So that goes back to that identity thing of like, you will never see me like the Trump flag from the back of the pickup.
Yeah.
Like that thing, you will never see me doing that.
Regardless of your flavor of politics.
100%. Yes.
Yeah.
You may see a tiny little Grateful Dead sticker on the back of my car. It's just a wink and a nod to somebody that's paying attention.
Exactly.
But that's it.
Right.
So back to, so then you're also familiar. So you can't just wake up one morning as a governing body and say, hey, guess what, folks? Today we're going to start wholesaling imprisoning people. And we're going to start throwing kids in cages because frankly, we just don't like them very much. They're just annoying and we don't like them. So we're just going to throw them away basically. And those that don't go willingly, well, we'll figure out a way to imprison them. And we'll probably make drugs even more illegal or something. I don't know. But, but we're just going to start getting rid of those people. So you won't have to be bothered by them anymore.
By them.
Most like people be like, well, I mean, I don't really want that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So you gradually, or it's the frog in the boiling pot of water.
Yeah.
Thing.
Yeah.
You just gradually kind of start taking away things like, oh, I don't know, after, say, for example, a terror attack that could have been easily prevented had the intelligence community been on top of things, and our president not left the report sitting on our desk, on his desk, use that as a way to roll back civil rights. It, for example, that the FBI can, for just example, collect if you're a public library user, the FBI can collect your records of what you've been reading, and the library is absolutely forbidden to tell you that happened. That's one of the nice little things in the Patriot Act.
That's fun.
It's great. Taking away your privacy from your ISPs under the guise of protecting you from child pornography. Everybody's I gotta get protected. Yeah, but see, now your ISPs can actually read all of your emails. So that's pretty cool. Just little stuff like that over time. And now what we have is this really awesome turnkey authoritarian state. Because you don't need the Stasi anymore. You don't need the KGB anymore. You got it in your friggin' phone.
Yeah.
And all we need now, we're so close. And I'll say they're so close.
Yeah.
Those fuckers can taste it. Donald Trump, he almost got him over the hill, but he's such a fucking idiot, and he's compromised on 1,000 levels.
Yeah. Right. Oh yeah.
So but the next one won't be like that. It'll look a lot like Pete Ricketts, to where they just need to get just a little bit further, and the next thing you know, people start disappearing.
Yeah. Right. right.
Because I'm a dissident, you're a dissident. It's all out there on the social media.
Yep.
And Mark Zuckerberg, the only thing that his only thought will be like, well, it might be one less user.
Or it's like, how can I monetize the sale of all of that information? If they needed that
already
particular,
done. I mean, that's already done.
For sure.
That's the thing that Orwell got wrong. The only thing that Orwell missed is he couldn't have fathomed a world in which millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of people willingly gave away their privacy, and gave away their information.
But what was the lie that we got in return? Was like social. I mean, it was like, oh, cool, I can find my ex-girlfriend from 1980, whatever. It's like whatever that thing.
Or we'll be more connected. But the research shows that is in fact the opposite.
But that's like the most intense. That's like the most enticing drug for a human.
Oh yeah, it's connection.
More connection.
People are liking. I got the likes.
Yeah, that's our social currency.
Yeah. Which
Likes.
is back to that movie, The Social Dilemma. But anyway,
yes.
So like my friend, I've told you about my friend George in Northern Virginia, George Moyer. He's deceased now, so I'll use his full name. But George was extremely dysfunctional alcoholic. His family life was a shambles. He was a shambles. But George was wickedly intelligent. He was so smart and just devastatingly funny. And despite the fact that he was a real son of a bitch bastard, was kind of a hoot to be around. And he was probably 10 years older than me, but he was the guy, like, this is before the internet. Like, he would spend his time down at the Library of Congress.
Wow.
Digging up stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how he was
nice little Saturday.
Pretty much. I mean, that's how but he literally, like, the way George was gonna go, the way he actually ended up dying was just sad and pathetic. But and I mean that but he, he was going to be the guy, like the guys in black or whatever, dragging him out of his shitty apartment, and he's dragging his file cabinets with him, going, "I've got you fuckers."
Yeah, right.
You're not going to get. I know. And they're like, yeah. Get in the Suburban. Get
in the van. Yeah.
But there was a point in there somewhere. Oh, he's been like, he would talk about where we're at today in 1990. Like, he 100% predicted, like, Donald Trump was not a surprise to George.
Right.
Had he been alive to see it. He's been predicting this for so long. Like, this is all of this stuff that's happened is a very natural progression. It's predictable. It's and you know what? If the Democrats don't pull their heads out of their asses and get some fucking balls.
Yeah.
And I mean that in a non-gender, I mean, just get some fucking cojones.
What they need are some ovaries, because those things can withstand a lot more than my testicles.
Saying that, actually.
Yeah,
that's true.
100%.
We could use some ovaries.
100%.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. That just came out. But anyway, you know what I'm saying.
I know what you mean.
Have some courage. And do things like abolish the filibuster.
Yeah.
Expand the Supreme Court.
Sure.
Do things, and I don't know, with the stroke of a pen, clear student loans.
Oh my God!
All of those things.
Not just because that would selfishly benefit me in my financial life, but it's just like
it would benefit.
Low-hanging fruit economy boost
that would put $1 trillion into the economy. Like, boop.
Yep.
Oh, and by the way, you know how you pay for that? Tax the fucking billionaires.
There you go. Easy. That's like a year. That's like a 2-year fiscal plan.
Yeah.
Tax them the way they should be taxed.
When 3 people in the country have made billions of dollars during the pandemic, they should probably pay taxes on that.
Probably.
Why I pay more taxes than Jeff Bezos and all those fuckers is entirely beyond me. No, it's actually not beyond me. I know exactly why that's happened. You know why? Because of things like the Reagan administration.
Yeah.
Because of things like Citizens United.
Yes.
And it goes back to the frog in the pot, where people are like, I ain't going to give those liberals that money. You cut taxes. But in the meantime, our infrastructure is crumbling. Our educational system is crumbling and is under attack. And all because of billion. How did the interstate system get built in the 50s?
Right.
Like corporations paying taxes. How do we put a man on the moon using the socialist space program?
Or our big bad socialist military. That's still the biggest socialist military the world has ever seen.
But more and more that's being paid for by you and me.
Yeah.
So there's that. So all of these things, it's very, very, very predictable. And it's very obvious if you look at it that way.
Yeah.
You just take the fascist playbook and just check. Start bashing the media, find a scapegoat, kill the education system. We're 100% doing that. So if the Democrats or whatever party doesn't get their butt in gear, in 2024, Pete Ricketts is going to be our president, or somebody like him, or that fuck from Missouri.
Right. Yeah.
Those guys aren't old and doddering. And I don't know about the guy from Missouri, but I don't think, just simply because of his extreme privilege, Pete Ricketts is probably not that compromised.
No, probably. No.
He went, all the way from being the son of a billionaire to being a billionaire. He didn't really need to.
It's amazing how that happens.
He's probably not a Russian asset. Whereas
that we know of.
our previous president, his only actual profitable business was laundering Russian gangster money. So he was kind of compromised. Um,
I
so
love
what
you,
my point
Steve.
is,
I love you.
my point is that if 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 we don't get our collective butts in gear,
Mm,
like this nice little Pax Romana of Joe Biden's presidency, enjoy it
yeah.
because we are on the precipice.
But is it just like one of those things where we're just going to swing back and forth between Chevy and Ford?
Well,
I
but
mean,
see,
is that all?
but the point is that um, Frank Zappa said it best. Politics is just the entertainment division of the military-industrial complex.
There we go. There we go.
It doesn't matter.
Right. Doesn't matter.
And I can. Joe Biden has made some little moves. He's made some moves, and he's made some things that make us feel good, but he hasn't taken the big steps. And the Democratic Party, with the little bit of power that they actually have for once, have not taken the big steps that need to be taken.
I agree.
And that's
I think
all you need to know how screwed we are.
Well, that's the thing, like, and I appreciate the breadth of your understanding, but what I'm, speaking of current politics, it's like I think that 10 years ago or more, the infrastructure deal and all the things that are going on in that and the kind of support that it got would have been a huge fireworks celebration, but it was kind of like we're so distracted by everything. We're also surviving a pandemic still, and we're also worried, like you said, at the kitchen table politics of the situation is you're worried about your kids not getting sick with a pandemic. You know what I mean?
So here's an interesting thing, and this is something my dad used to talk about as one of his railing points, is inflation, and it's going up. When you start talking about, you can talk 3.5 trillion in infrastructure, which I am all for because this country's infrastructure is
trash.
It's really bad. It's not number one. We are not number one. Our bridges, over 85% of them are rated D plus.
Yikes.
That's really bad. Remember Minneapolis when the bridge of the interstate just fell into the water? Yeah. I mean, like most of our infrastructure is that bad.
Right.
So on the one hand, that infrastructure deal is yay, big, but without the tax revenue to pay for it, like i.e. again, taxing people like Jeff Bezos, etc., and that ilk, the end result of that, and this is the Republicans' railing point, is that, well, it's going to raise inflation.
Yeah, right.
And who's going to pay for it? Well, the answer is the fucking millionaires, billionaires. Never mind the millionaires, billionaires. But see, that's not on the table. Then you have to shift the blame back to the brown people who are coming to take the jobs or whatever. It's not the billionaires. It's their people. It's the poor people coming from Ecuador that are really the problem. But so what was the rallying point in pre-Nazi Germany? It was the fact that to buy a loaf of bread, you needed a bushel basket full of Deutschmarks.
Yeah.
And it was all because of the Jews.
Right.
So my prediction, and we'll see if it pans out or not, is then about 2026, when inflation's sky fucking high because of all this taxing or because of the spending without billionaires paying taxes, inflation's going to get pretty high.
Yeah.
And it's going to get pretty bad. It may not be a bushel basket full of Deutschmarks to get a loaf of bread bad, but it could get pretty bad. And and by the way, with the house prices and all that skyrocketing again,
that's going to burst.
Prepare for another economic bubble burst, because that's going to happen at some point. So those two things, you have another global economic crisis compounded by rampant inflation. You're going to need a scapegoat.
Yeah, dude.
And what better scapegoat than the people that we've already been scapegoating?
Yeah, that's that the rhetoric has already been, the foundation has already been laid.
That's my point, is that while it's been kind of simmering under the surface, now it's come to the top.
Yep.
And so, and all of that mechanism is fully in place. You got your Fox News, you got your Newsmax, you got your One America.
Right.
And people, and rather than deal with the hard stuff, it's just so much easier to blame them.
Ooh.
Which is the American way.
Yeah, it is.
So really, again, back to my previous point from a week or two ago is we're getting exactly what we asked for. Unless we stand up and talk about it and take action.
I think that I don't want to say diatribe because I feel like that has a negative connotation, but that monologue, that thought stream is, and this is me waxing philosophical about it because that's kind of maybe what I do most, is that you being able to say that is why I appreciate this time with you, and that, being chastised by somebody, and I don't even know who this person is, but being chastised by somebody for being able to articulate these thoughts and being able to have the gumption to express them. I mean, that's why creative expression is worth more to me than a lot of things, you know what I mean? Being able to creatively express these things, even if it's just a recording of it or a conversation, which is an art form in and of itself, like being able to express oneself in a time, because that's what I remember. That's been something that has sort of been an engine within me for a long time, but also just in the last, like you mentioned, the last 4 or 6 years has been this really keen understanding of what an important part of being able to have a voice and be able to find a way to express it and being able to, that is part of the work. You know what I mean? That is part of the work. It's part of the job. It's part of the way to affect change. I don't know that we can bring down Jeff Bezos or make him pay taxes, but
nope.
Yeah, it's a weird place when somebody's like, "Hey, you should quiet down about that and be more positive."
Go fuck yourself.
Go fuck yourself. Hey,
don't you have a tea time or something to go?
Yeah, I don't really want to. Man, you're really bumming me out with all of your free expression.
You're really bringing me over, man.
You're really bringing me over with that. Well, how about you just record something that I won't listen to anyway about how grateful you are? I mean, we have those episodes. Go listen to those. I mean,
just because whatever my little monologue there, which by the way was unintentional.
I loved it.
But that doesn't mean I'm not grateful.
Yes.
It doesn't mean I'm not loving.
It also doesn't mean you're not a patriot.
Right.
It doesn't mean you don't love your country.
Right. That drives me crazy too. One of my favorite things I've ever heard about that is that some people love America or love their country like a child loves his mama. Don't you say nothing bad about my mama.
Right.
Where other people love their country the way brothers love each other.
Yeah.
Which is, they say, dude, you are wrong.
Yeah.
You are so far out of line right now. And
yeah.
You might throw a couple punches at each other, but at least you have the conversation.
Right. Pull your head out of your ass.
Right. You are so. Did you really need to put the kids in cages?
Well,
was that by themselves without their parents? Was that necessary?
Well, our former guest,
they broke the law.
Our former guest Greg Wright shares about it on social media pretty freely. He calls folks that, you always see with the Trump flag in the back, or like the big waving whatever, or like the whole front yard full of
insane
whatever
signs. Have you seen those?
Oh, I have.
Yeah.
He calls it Fisher Price patriotism.
Yeah. I love it.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just like you bought all the toys and you're displaying your toys, and they're they're all made in a foreign country anyway. So
right.
Ugh.
Yeah, the guy that you tout above all, I was gonna say, your Trump card, like hates you.
Hates you.
He
doesn't want you at Mar-a-Lago.
He does not want you at Mar-a-Lago, but he'll sure as shit take your money
to pay his legal fees.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but he won't pay his attorneys.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's like this goes back to people got suckered so hard.
Yeah, dude.
And they have two choices. One is to admit that.
Ooh.
And the other is to double down.
I don't like
Fox News isn't strong enough anymore. Got to go to Newsmax.
I can't. Oh, well, that's one of the. This is some of the hardest things for a human being to say, myself included. Is yeah, I was wrong about that,
Right.
and I'm going to walk that back.
Right.
And you
I'm gonna
know,
walk back the last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, because
yeah,
that's just it. It's this didn't start in 2016.
no, it did
No.
not.
We didn't start the fire.
We didn't start the
It's
fire. It was
always
all.
been burning since the world's been turning.
Oh my god.
Speaking of, have you started watching the Underground Railroad on Amazon yet?
No, I haven't.
I
I've.
started it last night, and it's I can tell it's just going to be amazing. I listened to an
Yeah.
interview with Barry Jenkins, and it's I love that he called it a poem
Mm,
because it
mm.
is brutal and it is beautiful, and
It's brutal. Brutal.
I mean, sure, let's go with that.
Well,
It's
that's a term from Glennon Doyle Melton. I don't know if you ever listened to her, but she's
no,
pretty great. But she talks about life being brutal. It's like brutal and beautiful at the same time.
sure,
And poetry works in there like that.
but that's
No,
it's
I
kind of
saw
like
a trailer for that, and I really do. I need to
it's
make
kind
some
of
space.
like it's kind of like that. Oh God, this is a terrible analogy. But remember that Moulin Rouge movie?
Yeah,
Or like the Beatles thing across the universe, where it's
yeah.
like I mean, it's just kind of free flowing. There was a plot, but it's very graphic and it's
Is
not
it bad? Well, that both of
it's
those.
not that extreme, but it has that kind of feel to it. Is that it's kind of surreal isn't exactly the right word because it's very fucking real and very graphic at times. But just the way that it's shot
Hmm.
and kind of the way that the plot so far is laid out is
Mm-hmm.
very um
Well, I think both. I think that Across the Universe and Moulin Rouge was directed by Baz Luhrmann. Is that the
oh really.
did
I don't
Baz
know.
Luhrmann direct? I wonder if that's
No, Barry
in the
Jenkins is
style
the
of
director.
Baz Luhrmann, like very.
I think he may have just taken an element because it's not like this plot point leads to this plot point and then this plot point leads to this.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
all kind of just flows and is
Mm,
very engrossing to watch in a way that is not linear.
yeah. Oh,
So
okay.
it kind of like a poem. It's like you feel and see things that maybe aren't directly said,
Ah,
other than the graphic violence. Um,
right.
which by the way is not gore or torture porn. It's just graphic violence because that's what it was.
Okay.
It's not
Yeah.
sensational, right?
Right. Right.
um
Yeah. I need to watch this. I
well
remember seeing
that's
a trailer about it or
I
something.
challenge anyone that feels like maybe I'm full of shit just to watch that and come back and we'll talk.
Okay.
You know what I'm
All right.
saying?
Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
about things like systemic racism.
Right.
Like if you really feel like that quote the black people should just be quiet and be glad they've got what they've got,
Yeah. Ugh.
maybe you should watch this and then let's talk.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. I'll check it out. I'm open to that. That's yeah, that's
It's
interesting.
so far very, very, very heavy. And like
Yeah.
Barry Jenkins, and I was listening to him talk to Mark Maron, and that Maron's like, after the first, it's like the Saving Private Ryan thing. Like the first 20 minutes are so brutal, if you can watch the rest of the movie, and it's
Mhm.
kind of that thing. Like it opens up with both barrels.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Well, okay. So academically that's interesting to me because I was literally talking about the movie Saving Private Ryan in script analysis class about how there's 5 elements of a story: balance, unbalance, quest, climax, new balance.
Hmm.
And that Spielberg sort of the first 20 minutes of Saving Private Ryan, the balance of that movie is complete war and chaos. It's just death and destruction. And that is like stating to the audience, this is the way this is. This is the way this world is. This is war, and it's awful, and it's scary, and it's chaos. And then things are disrupted by somebody coming along and say, hey, we're going to save one guy over there. So I'm just as an artist, like I'm super fascinated by stories that start not at like Lord of the Rings in the Shire, when stories start like energetically and just throw you in because it's telling you exactly what kind of world you're in.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm definitely going to check that out.
Yeah, I think it's like 10 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like how many, like broken up into episodes?
Yeah, and I don't
Okay.
know how many episodes. I got like an hour into it yesterday. But yeah, I'm definitely in for the duration. It'll probably take me a while to watch, but
Yeah.
anyway, just a huge shout out to that artistic achievement because it's pretty amazing. And as much as I've just been bashing Jeff Bezos, kudos to Amazon Video for producing it. I mean, I got to give credit where credit's
Yeah.
due, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
is really like it's not something I never watched Roots,
Yeah. I didn't either.
so I can't really compare it. But
Yeah.
if I was going to take a guess, I'd say that this is more.
Okay. Right.
Um,
Well, I speaking of artistic achievement, you said something about Charlie Watts yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I want to. I kind of thought that maybe one of the things you wanted to talk about tonight was
Charlie Watts.
Yeah, but you mentioned him yesterday in a little meeting we were at, and you said something about like he was gonna have to step down from the upcoming tour before
he did.
He did step down.
Steve Jordan was going to fill in for him.
And what was the
reason? He had a surgical procedure that was never announced. It just, he had some sort of surgery, like 5-6 weeks ago, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And when they announced the band that he wouldn't be participating in this tour at age 80 after playing the drums in the Rolling Stones for 58 years continuously.
Yeah.
He said that for the first time in his life, he couldn't keep a beat. I mean, what a thing to acknowledge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that, he may have been saying, I frankly just can't get out of bed.
Right.
Because I'm very ill.
Right.
But even if it was just he literally post surgery just couldn't put the four on the floor,
Yeah. Yeah.
What a thing to acknowledge just from a human perspective.
And from that level of, I mean, that's one thing that the Rolling Stones have. That's the thing that's the heartbeat, is this consistent, I've been, a lot of celebrities are talking about, and drummers that I follow and people I follow on social media are talking about
how
Charlie was a human metronome. He could keep time.
Well, not only that, but he swung like a motherfucker.
Well, yeah, that too.
He was a jazz drummer that happened to have a pretty good gig in rock and roll.
Yeah, right.
And that's why the Rolling Stones could swing like the Count Basie band.
Right.
This is all Charlie. Right. And him and his little Gretsch kit, he didn't need the Alex Van Halen, Neil Peart, no disrespect, but
right. He didn't need the spinning drum kit that raises over the fans and fireworks.
The same, two toms of floor, the kick drum and a snare and a few cymbals, and like that's all he needed.
Mm-hmm.
And with that kit, he rocked so hard for so long.
All of us.
And I read a really nice piece. I can't remember who wrote it, saying that Charlie never gave a fuck about like Mick Jagger or the people up front. He was there to do a job, and that job was to keep the train on the tracks and to keep people dancing, and all the other stuff was like whatever that was, and it made it possible for the Rolling Stones to be the Rolling Stones. But he didn't need any of that.
I saw some interview with him.
He was actually I can't remember how long or when, but he and his wife were married, and he was by all accounts faithful for decades.
Wow.
Through all, as opposed to like Bill Wyman, who married 2 19-year-olds. I don't know. Just
at the same time.
Yeah, well, kind of. I mean, it's a weird thing, but
I was watching some interview with him from probably maybe late 90s, and I don't even remember. He was talking about something pretty profound, but he mentioned something about Keith and Mick, and he was just like, he kind of rolled his eyes, like about both of them. Like when he mentioned their name, he was just like, whatever. Those two yahoos up front. You know what I mean? Like those two guys in their ass.
Well, he was in a position to be able to do that.
Yeah, he was kind of he was always impeccably dressed.
Looked great.
Always.
Well, I mean, the Stones were always fashion plates. I mean, the shit they started out basically as musical fashion models. I mean, that was kind of the business model, if you will.
Right.
I mean, Mick Jagger was going to business school when they formed. Their success was no accident.
Exactly.
And that's why the Stones are a guilty pleasure for me, because their whole thing of like the outlaw and all that is like, I've read a thing, it's probably in the early 2000s where it's not just a scathing, it's like a punk zine was like, the Rolling Stones play music that basically espouses a lifestyle that most of the people that live that lifestyle can never afford to go to one of their concerts.
Yeah.
And they're not wrong.
They're not wrong, man.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's really fun. I had the same feeling at Guns N' Roses where like they come out and go, you know where you are? That thing. You're in the jungle. And there's a bunch of 40-year-old dudes eting nachos, drinking a $12 tall boy.
We're in the jungle, baby.
We're in the jungle, baby. I was like, this is stupid. Get the fuck out of here. Oh wait, I paid $200 for this ticket. I guess I'll stay.
Oh yeah, I'll just try. I gotta find a way to enjoy this somehow.
Nope. There were a couple moments, but yeah. Anyway. My first, and this is, I think my first probably favorite song was, I believe, I Want to Hold Your Hand by the Beatles, because my dad would play it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was little, but like,
yeah.
But I remember back in the day when KFRX, today's top hits, played still Led Zeppelin, the Rolling Stones, the Who.
Yeah.
I remember Start Me Up.
Yeah.
Like I remember waiting for them to play it so I could tape it. And that beat.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what keeps coming back. It isn't Mick Jagger saying, you could make a dead man come. That's not, like it's the beat and the groove to that song that make it so, and that's all Charlie Watts.
Yeah, man. I think of the rolling drums in Paint It Black.
Oh yeah.
Dude. Just I remember that because there was a TV show about Vietnam in the 80s that used that song as its opening song.
Oh wow.
And that was my introduction to the Rolling Stones, I think. I mean, it may have been I Can't Get No Satisfaction. Yeah. But that was the one that was like, oh, that's cool. Paint It Black. That's scary and weird. And it was like they tied it to this show about Vietnam. I don't even remember the name of the show. If you remember the name of the show, email us.
I mean, that song was, I'm sure, played in Vietnam.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. But that I want to see. I mean, my introduction to the Rolling Stones was that beat.
That beat. Yep. Oh yeah, it's great. Yep. So anyway, R.I.P. Charlie. He had a good run.
Man. It's like, yeah.
I really, that one hit me pretty hard. Like I like, oh my God. I mean, he's 80 years old. He had a life beyond most people's wildest dreams.
For sure.
Nice work if you can get it,
Right.
Right. And
but so you've been spending a lot of time with his music lately too, like going through, learning all of those songs, listening to all that music.
I've listened to a lot of Charlie Watts drumming lately.
Ah, man.
So, I mean, mad respect. As much as the Stones are kind of a guilty pleasure. I know what they are. I talked about this with my guitar teacher, Mark Leaker. Hi, Mark, if you're listening, about, them being a very fine product.
Yeah, right. Really well done.
Really well done.
Choice cut, rock and roll.
And that's, like my sister-in-law, hi, Kara, if you're listening, she asked me, as we were talking about them, she was contemplating going to Denver to see him in 2019. She's like, you've seen him. Should I go? I'm like, yes.
You go.
Like, these tickets are kind of expensive. I'm like, yeah, go see him, So she did. She paid, I don't know how much money, quite a bit for just nosebleeds at Mile High.
Yeah.
And she came back. I said, so how was it worth it? She's like, oh yeah, they were great.
Yeah. I'm bummed. I've never seen them. Kirsten's seen them. Like I never saw the Rolling Stones,
Yeah. And I think it's important. Like it's kind of like other situations like Pearl Jam or the Grateful Dead or whatever. Like because Mick Jagger just like a goof. He just looks like a goof on TV. It's like, dude, can you just not, why are you doing that? But in a stadium,
right,
all of a sudden those theatrics make sense.
Yeah, right.
It clicks. Like, oh, that's why he's not being a goof. He's getting everybody into it.
Yeah, he's the ringleader of 90,000 people or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, get him.
Yeah, and you got to. You can't hide from that. You either lean into that and kick your bell bottoms out, or you hide and
get your yayas out.
Get your yayas out.
So yeah, I mean that's anyway. That was a. I think that's part of. I really think knowing that Charlie Watts is gone is it's kind of taking the jam out of my donut a little bit.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and it's not a bad thing. It's life.
Sure.
And
sure.
I mean, it's a fucking rock and roll star. I'll be okay. But but that's really, I think there's a mortality piece to it too.
Yes, that's the thing. When I saw you yesterday and kind of your emotion, I don't have the connection to that band that you have, and they even precede your understanding of music. But at the same time, like I'm seeing my favorite musicians get older and older, and it's like, I don't know. That's it's just a weird thing about time, because like, my favorite band, Pearl Jam, it's 30 years since their first record came out. This is their anniversary, their 30 years.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And I think back, okay, I was alive 30 years ago, and I remember that coming out. But like when I was born, 30 years prior to that was 1950. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that seems ancient to me, but that was only that amount of time. So time is this very strange, weird, that's how you emotionally experience it. And I can't wrap my mind around it, really.
And see, that's that time when like 10 came out. That was the first album, right?
Yep.
So that you were about the age when that came out, that when Tattoo You came out and started.
Oh, right on.
So it's about that formative, like,
right on. Yeah.
So in one form or another, Charlie Watts has been grooving in my soul, in my head, in my being for 40 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because Tattoo You came out 40 years the day that Charlie died. Was the 40th anniversary of release of that album.
Wow.
So I mean that's just how long.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that's what really hit me. It's just that, like, oh my God, that much time has passed.
Yeah. 30. Pearl Jam's album 10. It's like 30 years. Like, I don't know where to put that,
Right. That's real. Yeah.
Because it doesn't, like, those things don't feel like, I don't know what 30 years is supposed to feel like, but I don't know. I don't know what that's supposed to feel like, but it seems like it's a long time ago, but it also seems like it's yesterday.
Well,
you can put on Tattoo You, or I could put on 10 right now. And it's like, I can tap into that fucking 11-year-old that his mind is getting fucking blown.
Right.
But that those musicians don't last forever, but their music will. And that's incredible that we got to be around somebody, being at the same time as people like Mick Jagger, Charlie Parker, or no, I'm Charlie Parker. Oh my God.
Well, him
Charlie
too,
Watts.
but yeah.
Well, that too. Charlie Watts, Eddie Vedder, Yeah.
I guess I guess I can just go out and, find another house project to work on.
How's your driveway doing? You need to tear that up.
My driveway's fucked, man. That's
all right. So
yeah,
you just got to get a little jackhammer. You just got to go down to Lowe's, get a jackhammer, learn how to pour some concrete forms.
Get a jackhammer and an air compressor. Anyway,
let's fucking go.
Sure. I love you, man.
I love you too, dude. I'm grateful for you.
Yeah, you too. Toot your hooter.
Toot your hooter, everybody.
Yeah.
Get him.
Later.
That's all I got. Bye.
Later. Bye.
Thank you.